accounts posted it. After Florida removes Billy Napier. They never play anybody, though. They still win in the playoffs. Don't get me wrong. I hate OSU, but they are good. I mean, Ohio State is, for all intents and purposes, is fantastic. They've done a really good job of recruiting, building their roster, retaining talent. It's makes it really hard to compete with that. I can't believe. Wonder if it'll pop up now. But I guess they had a ton of people on their availability report this week. So we'll see. I'm sure everybody that's in the Florida side of things are looking forward to basketball season as Kentucky. That's because nobody can beat them. Well, you know, it is what it is. But also, the phone lines are open. Number to call, 260-255-4069 is the number to call. Kentucky, Florida, they stuffed that in the 7:30 time slot, I think, for a reason. Same thing they did with Ole Miss and the Citadel. They're trying to urge people to come out. If I lived in that area and wasn't a fan of Ole Miss or Mississippi State, I think Mississippi State would be the place to be. Mississippi State keep it interesting tomorrow. Yeah, I think the Mississippi State will keep it interesting. The thing of it is that Caleb, I'm going to the game. Oh, it's going to be a ruckus crowd. I think that they're going to get up for this one. And I hate to be that guy, but I think Mississippi State could make some noise tomorrow afternoon in Starkville. I just feel like they can, because Georgia, for the most part, especially in the first halves, have started slow on offense, and I don't quite understand why they have started slow like they have been. Why why they've done that. And then also you have, wearing red and black though, yeah. I think for the most part it's kind of one of those things that Mississippi State has been so close on so many games that they just haven't been able to get in there and do anything. Because it seems like right at the last minute, they are at the end of the game, when it comes down to winning the game, they just kind of, not necessarily fold, but they kind of they just don't quite get over the hump. In which, for this week in the slate for the SEC is kind of weak this week. I think between the Big 10 and the Big 12, they have a little bit better of games. But I don't know. I think before the season, everybody thought that LSU, Alabama was going to be the be-all, end-all, and they thought people were going to be able to flock to that, which I think that's, I mean, before the season, I was down on LSU. I had them at 6-6 because I knew they would not be A&M. I didn't know that it would fall off the rails and they would look that bad offensively, to be quite honest. I didn't think they would look that bad offensively. That was my only thing. So there's kind of that. I don't know. Also, you have the whole. I think Alabama rolls them. Yeah, I do too. I think for the most part, Alabama does roll them. I think it's going to be interesting to see how DeBoer winds the game down, just for the simple fact of I feel like that once he gets them down, he's going to. How do you feel about UVA? Did you know Texas, Penn State, and Clemson were going to be as bad as well? I was skeptical of Texas. I thought Penn State would have been better. I thought Clemson would have been better. Just my opinion. I thought Clemson had the roster coming back that they would have been better than what they were, and it just didn't pan out. I think by Clemson losing the LSU game kind of sent them in a tailspin. And then Texas losing on the road, I'm not shocked by that. And then also Texas losing at Florida, I thought was not bizarre, to say the least. I didn't think it was that bizarre. Florida's a tough place to play, especially when the fans show up. But I think that at the end of the day, Texas dropping that one at Florida makes it tough. Also, the phone lines are open. Number to call, 260-255-4069 is the number to call as well. You have that. There's a lot that goes into. I think that there's going to be some teams with head coaching vacancies that are going to be upset and their feelings are going to get hurt as far as filling coaching positions. I truly do believe that, because if you're Florida, you've sold your fan base on getting Lane Kiffin, and what happens when you don't get him? That's the reality of the situation. And a lot of people are thinking Franklin is going to end up at Arkansas. I think that'll be fascinating. I think it'll be bizarre. It'll be interesting to see where Brian Kelly lands. If he lands anywhere, I could see a world where Brian Kelly just does TV and is done. I wouldn't be shocked by that, to be honest. If Caleb here says, I think Gunnar Stockton is going to look good. Miami now knows who Carson Beck is. Thoughts? Well, Carson Beck, Miami was over the moon the first 6 weeks of the season. The last couple weeks of the season, not so much. Are you trying to say BYU's schedule's harder than Bama's? Not I. That's ESPN. Through week 11, that's ESPN's ranking, not mine. So there is that also. It's fascinating on the strength of schedule thing. I honestly, what I thought was going to happen is I thought that they were going to put Indiana number 1 instead of Ohio State. I thought they would make the switch and make Indiana 1, but they didn't. So there's that. And the thing with Indiana is a lot of people make fun of them, but the thing with Indiana, though, is that they've been able to not only beat teams, they beat the hell out of teams, is the thing. So there is that. So I think that as far as going forward, I think Indiana has done pretty much everything they've needed to do. And as far as the people complaining about Indiana's schedule, they only can play the schedule the Big Ten gives to them because of the way the games are scheduled out. So, and the conference schedule isn't determined by them, only their non-con schedule. Although it was kind of funny when Signetti did say, "Joe Long, what's up, man?" I think that for the most part with Indiana, it's very bizarre, to say the least, that they couldn't acquire any big time teams in the last 2 years. But also, let's say you are Florida, you don't want to schedule a home and home with Indiana because they could embarrass you. And I think that the Signetti thing has also put a ton of pressure on coaches throughout college football because he went to the losingest program ever and is winning. That's the problem that I think some people have with the Signetti stuff. Also, phone lines are open. Number to call, 260-255-4069. If you can do us the biggest favor and hit that like and subscribe button, helps us grow the channel and helps us get us out there. Also live on TikTok as well. Appreciate everybody. But I think next week could get a little bit more interesting as far as SEC wise. Oklahoma, Alabama is the one that I have the eyeball on, and then Texas, Georgia. I think that essentially is a elimination game. I think that, would anybody be shocked if they moved on from Sark at Texas? I know some people before would hear me say that and say, that's blasphemy. Why would you do that? Well, I gauge this like the Tennessee fans because Heupel and Sark pretty much have the same record. And one is considered a top 5 coach, and the other one is not. Oh, I got a call. What's up, Joe?
What's up? What's your schedule tonight?
Oh, I'm just going for a little bit. I was going to leave it open to see how many calls I got for this evening, and you're the first one.
Okay. Are you watching games tonight too, or what?
The game that I want to see tonight is Tulane, Memphis. I find that very fascinating. I just got college basketball on right now.
Yeah, me too. Kansas and North Carolina.
No, I'm watching Ole Miss. There's some things I want to see out of Beard and see what his team looks like going forward.
See, you already know what to expect from the big boys, so you want to get to see what else is cooking.
Yeah, I guess I could flip over to UNC Kansas.
Well, I think it's halftime.
Oh, it's halftime for them?
Yeah. But what about USC tonight?
Yeah. I guess there's speculation. I've seen some people put it out there that Lincoln Riley might leave USC to go to LSU.
What do you think of
that? If it's true, here's the thing. I know that we've talked about this, but when Penn State fired James Franklin, they set off a fire sale.
Mm-hmm.
So if Lincoln Riley leaves to go to LSU, I think that it'll have to be... Now, if they go out and lose tonight, that might not be out of the realm of possibility.
Right.
So
the odds would go up. The odds would go up probably.
Oh, through the roof. And
well, I don't know if they'd go through the roof, but they'd go up because you got to know, he's still got the number one recruit class coming up for 26.
I'm getting questions on TikTok. Somebody says, "Where does Lane go?" I think Lane Kiffin is going to wait and see what opens up, in my opinion. And then somebody else says that Lincoln Riley's too chicken shit to go to the SEC. So I don't know. The way I'm looking at it is, I feel like if it was up to me, Lincoln Riley wouldn't. I don't think he leaves USC. I think his buyout is so big that it protects
right.
him.
And he's sitting on a 6-2 record right now. Number one recruiting class.
Right.
What's the incentive to leave?
There is none.
Yeah.
There is no incentive for Lincoln to leave USC. Now,
that's what I think.
Now, here's the big thing. If Texas and Sark mutually part ways, I think that. What up, H-Town?
I think Sark might be the one higher odds to leave his club than Lincoln Riley.
Oh yeah, I remember you, H-Town. I think that
H-Town, call in.
Yeah. Well, I got TikTok up on my phone, and the YouTube it's on two separate things, because there's some things you can say.
Line. Oh, your phone line doesn't work with you TikTok?
No, I don't have my StreamYard connected to TikTok because it's too big of a hassle.
Yeah.
It makes it easier to keep them separate, because if there's a topic I want to talk about that's something that isn't appropriate for TikTok, I can get away with it on YouTube.
Ah, there you go.
There's a
logic.
Oh yeah,
there's a method to your madness.
Yeah, so as I'm scrolling through games, who knew Speedy Claxton, former NBAer, is the head coach at Hofstra?
Not me.
Yeah.
But I remember the name.
Right. But anyway, back to what I was saying. I think your big influx here.
What's the first move? What's your who's the first coach next?
Oh yeah, I remember H-Town. I think you're going to get. I think everybody's waiting to see. I think behind the scenes, people know that it's not going well at Texas, and I think Texas is one of those jobs that.
I haven't heard fans complaining, overly complaining. Anyway, I don't.
Well, Joe,
I think they're.
You don't
I
read.
think they're starting.
You don't read Twitter too much, do you?
I definitely don't read Twitter. No, I'm not a part of that. Yeah. Or Instagram or Facebook.
Yep. So that is.
I get too mad.
Oh yeah. So that is.
Especially at Twitter.
Oh,
There's a bunch of mindless fools on that.
Oh yeah. So that is the whole. That's the whole shooting match right there with the Twitter thing. Texas is bad, but I love them. I think as it sits right now, I think that, one of the most impressive teams I've seen this year, I think, is A&M out of the Texas schools.
What's funny about that is they barely beat Notre Dame, and they shouldn't have. They should have had a penalty called on that last play, and they should have a loss.
Yeah, but here's the thing: when it comes to on the Notre Dame.
I mean, Notre Dame missed extra point, and you could say that's a fluke, but now it's a reality with Notre Dame. They don't make extra points. Like, they're pathetic that way.
I think.
And as a Notre Dame fan,
yeah, I think as looking at it, I got some Texas A&M folks in here. One comment says, "Say goodbye to Texas University. So long to the orange and white. Say good luck to the old Aggies." That's a good one. I think one of the fascinating things out of all the rivalries in sports, I think the Texas A&M Texas thing is fascinating to me.
Yeah, it's always been a good one, but Texas A&M hasn't always been great. Like, they win that once every 5 years or so.
But here's the thing: I think they got it right whenever they were going to hire what was his name, Mark Stoops, and the fan base went crazy on the internet and said we don't want him. I think that's interesting, and then I also think that what we have.
Well, in looking at Elko as the alternative, it is a good move by Texas A&M.
I think that Mike Elko is a really good football coach.
Yeah, he is. He knows how to work the refs too.
And I think that Texas A&M finally hired somebody with some stability. I don't think there was a whole bunch of stability under Kevin Sumlin, and then they went to Jimbo.
Right.
But I think the Jimbo stuff was they went out and hired a name more than anything.
Yeah, and they way overpaid him.
Right.
In fact, he opened the door to head coaches in college getting big money.
Yes. But the guy that gave Jimbo his contract, the guy that gave
right.
that gave Kelly his contract is now unemployed. Another comment. Got to be honest, I think Georgia and A&M will take the Longhorns down, finishing 8-4. Yep.
See, I'm not a believer yet in Georgia. They've been very lucky to pull wins out this year, and they just don't seem to have the same talent that they've had in years past, in recent years past.
I think Georgia is struggling offensively. I think if they could get it figured out on offense, they would be all right. But I think also they kind of ran into a buzzsaw that was Alabama. Also, talking about disappointing games for this week that we thought we were going to have good ones in the 7:30 window. You have Clemson taking on Florida State, and I don't think anybody's going to watch that outside of fans. It's I'm not. At Death Valley, and the get-in price is as low as $34.
Right. I mean, they're both under 500, I think.
Mm-hmm. Or right.
Yeah. Who's gonna? No need to watch that. I have 9 other games that I'm watching.
Can you believe the tickets at Nebraska, UCLA are more than Clemson, Florida State?
This year.
Yep. I think it'll
now, where's that game at? Is it at Bruins? Or?
Yeah, it's at the Rose Bowl.
Yeah.
That was one thing.
I think UCLA fans are really chomping at the bit to have their team back to their glory,
Oh,
at least tougher.
Yes, we got a bold prediction here on the chat. Somebody says, I smell upset in Tuscaloosa next weekend with OU. Just a hunch. That would be interesting.
It should be a pretty good game, but it's at Alabama, so the SEC refs are still not warm to Oklahoma being in the conference. See, I put so much on the refereeing, and this year especially has been pitiful. So it's going to be hard for a team like Oklahoma to go into Tuscaloosa and pull one out. But I do love what Venables is doing there. I think he's building a culture, and I think he's making it, tough with defense for other teams to, they're not getting blown out. That's for sure, right? So that's what defense always does for you. It doesn't allow blowouts.
Yeah, and I think that Oklahoma was kind of set up that week that they played Texas. They just didn't look in sync. I think they played Mateer early. I don't know.
Yeah. Off an injury too, right?
Yeah, because see what Oklahoma has left is they have Alabama, they have Missouri, and LSU. LSU, for all intents and purposes, could be a corpse. Alabama.
Yeah, but they can win two of those 3. I mean, they should be able to win 2 of those 3 if they're as good as I think they are.
If they They got to go. They got to go 3-0 to make the playoff.
No, that's tough. That's asking Alabama at Alabama. I don't know. That's tough. But I think they can win 2 of the 3.
So, but I think 9-3 keeps Venables safe for the most part.
Oh yeah. They like Venables. I like Venables, and I'm not even a fan. But I would not mind him. Certainly as a defensive coordinator, he'd be awesome. But as a head coach, I would like him if Freeman decides to leave Notre Dame.
I
would take Venables.
From everything that's came out, I guess Freeman was Florida's top target, and he told him no immediately.
I don't blame him. I would never go from Notre Dame to Florida.
It would. Somebody says 1 and 2 would be better, but I think the Freeman stuff, he was going to be in demand no matter what.
Yeah.
That's kind of my opinion.
Yeah. I think they're going to adjust his salary to be one of the highest paid depending on how Notre Dame finishes. If they make the playoffs, I think that Notre Dame will construct to make him one of the highest paid in the country, because right now he's middle of the road with salaries.
Yeah,
I think he's only at about 7 point something million,
well,
7.2 or something.
I had heard he's around 10.
No, they just showed something. I just watched. They showed something, and it was on the internet. It was on YouTube, so it could not be. It might be wrong, but they gave some of the. I think they gave actually the top 10 coaches, and he was right in the middle. But I don't know. It could be that he's making 10. He should make at least 10 if they make the playoffs this year.
Well, look at it this way.
He'll make that next year.
Look at it this way. Belichick at North Carolina is making 10. And
right.
And you see the product on the field there.
Well, so Lincoln Riley is, I think, above him.
Yeah. But see, the thing is that USC had to overpay for Lincoln to get him there. I don't think that they had a real strategy.
I don't either. What they did was they said, look, I can come, and I know Caleb will come with me.
And I think the USC thing, I think that is a program that takes longer to build.
Well, what I said to a guy last night, I called in on some USC show, and I told him, what I'm not seeing really is a culture being built with Lincoln Riley. Like, they seem a little scattered all the time. In his 4 years, I don't see anything that resembles like a culture, where this team is coming together with, what he's bringing in. But, then again, he's got the number 1 draft recruit class. So I got to give a lot of credence to that. That makes a difference.
Right.
That's huge.
I think that it was going to be a longer build for Lincoln Riley. And I think if you have the measuring stick, and I talked to somebody about this that's a former coach, and I said, if you flip-flop Lane Kiffin and Brian Kelly at Ole Miss and at LSU, what Lane Kiffin has done at Ole Miss has been light years ahead of their expectations. Would you say that's fair?
Yeah.
If he's at LSU and wins the same amount of games, he gets fired. That's the difference.
Well, I don't know if he would, you mean in the first year?
No, the 10-year total.
Oh.
Because you have to remember, Lane Kiffin's first year, they went 5-5 at Ole Miss, and then they went out and won the Sugar Bowl. And then they've had a couple of 9-3s and 10-2s and haven't made the playoffs yet.
Yeah, well, the playoffs, as we see them, the current configuration is only 2 years in play. So, if you go 9-3, it's pretty much assured you're not going to get in. So he is on a pace to get to 2, and with that, he'd be in, I think.
Well, I think
because that means he wins out, right?
the 10-2 stuff's going to be fascinating. How many teams actually end up 10-2?
I know.
And I had seen a lot of chatter on the internet today about the automatic bids. I am so against that, fundamentally.
Me too. They're silly. It's silly.
Because here's my thing. If you go back through the years, and I've actually done this,
and a group of 5 automatically getting in, what if their best record is 9-3? You know, like, why give them anything? Earn it.
I think
they shouldn't get an automatic spot.
Where I'm at on it is that they have got to just rank the best teams and put the best teams in.
That's great. Why give them anything?
Because
me and no one else. Well, yeah, go ahead.
Me and Carter had this debate at the end of last year when the playoff field was set, and he says, "Well, SMU's automatically in," and I said, "But why though? They didn't beat anybody all year, and they end up 11-1 or 11-2, and then they go to Penn State and get absolutely dominated. That's not good for the playoff."
Well, here's the kicker on that. Every single one of those teams last year that got the bye lost in their first game.
Right. So I've seen people talking about, do the Big Ten and SEC teams that lose in the conference championship, should they be eligible for a bye over the ACC champion?
Nobody should be eligible for a bye. There should not be byes. That's my thing.
I think the byes are dumb, but I also think that auto bids, like, who wants to see the 4th best Big Ten team in there?
Right.
That could be 8-5, or that's all I'm saying.
I mean, I wouldn't get that extreme. I don't think that would ever happen, but certainly not out of the realm with auto bids.
And appreciate the follow. I also think that when it comes down to brass tacks with some of this stuff, they're getting to the point to where they're getting silly with it, to where you have all of these schools that are investing in football, and then you have schools that aren't, or conferences that aren't. Not everybody in the Big 12 is completely invested in football. I think Arizona State is. I think BYU is. I think Texas Tech is. I think that there's a lot of fascinating things that are going on. I think
think Kansas State, Iowa State, I think all those, mid-level, are invested, because that's all they have out there in the cornfields.
Right. And my thing is I think Iowa State's more invested in basketball because it's cheaper.
Well, yeah, I don't know. They seem to always be competitive,
But I think they have a really good coach.
With whoever they play.
They have a really good coach in Matt Campbell, and I'm surprised he stayed at Iowa State this long. But then again, if you're Matt Campbell, why would you want to go to some place like Florida, to where they think that you can just roll the helmets out there and win?
Yeah, I can't imagine they can think that way after so many failures. I mean, since Urban Meyer, they haven't been good.
Well, it's not that they haven't been good. It's like Dan Mullen took them to back-to-back SEC championship games, and they fired him.
That's crazy. That's like LSUville.
But see, the thing with LSUville is that ever since Jerry DiNardo, I mean, anybody can think what they want about Jerry DiNardo, but Jerry DiNardo, before him, but after DiNardo, it was Saban, Les Miles, Ed Orgeron, and then it was Brian Kelly. Now, on the Auburn side of things I think it's a little bit different, but Auburn also, they feel the same way Florida does, to where they think that anybody that they put there should be successful, and I don't think that's the case.
No, you got to do your vetting. I mean, you got to see what's out there and, what they've been able to do. those two are too big schools, too big to be, saying you can put anybody in and they'll be good. I mean, you have to earn it, especially in the SEC.
Well, also, I don't think the Kentucky people are going to get restless on the Stoops deal because basketball season's starting, and it'll just kind of go to football goes to a footnote at Kentucky. But I don't see how Kentucky isn't one of the better jobs in the SEC because there's no expectation.
Yeah.
If you go to a bowl game, great. If you don't, whatever. Basketball starts in November, so there's that.
Yeah, that's true.
So
I mean, I don't know if I'd want to go to a place like that because I know I'm not going to get the support.
Yeah, but you're also not going to be in a pressure cooker like you are Auburn. But
the difference is if you want to win, you want to have every possible advantage you can get, which is support financially and boosters, fans showing up. You want to be able to make that. It's a matter of your competition level, your competitiveness within yourself.
But I think that at a certain degree, you have to look at it as Auburn's fired everybody that they've hired since Shug Jordan. They fired everybody. Tuberville left, but he was going to get fired. Although I think he got snubbed for a national championship in 2004. I think that they had a outstanding team with Ronnie Brown and Cadillac Williams that year. But
I don't think Tuberville was a very good coach. I'm not in his.
I know a lot of people don't like him. But he's running for governor of Alabama, so we're about to see the popularity contest.
Yeah.
But here's the other thing too. I think it's funny that the people in Alabama and Mississippi are making fun of Louisiana. That the governor
Why is that?
Because of the comments the governor made and basically publicly firing the athletic director.
Yeah,
they're making fun of them, but at the end of the day,
well, I don't blame them. I mean, how do the fans put up with that? It's like get out of here, governor.
Well, I think
stick to your realm.
I think
stick to politics.
Here's the problem: is that realistically, LSU football is the only ticket in town.
Should be competitive. Should be competitive every year. Because LSU is one of those teams that should be competitive every year.
And I think they
Alabama and Notre Dame, Georgia, like Michigan and Ohio State. They're in that realm, And
in my lifetime, Ohio State's only had one losing season. But with that being said, I think that if things got off the tracks in which Tommy Tuberville came out and made a statement, it was on CBS Sports, that he told him to go after Pavia in the portal, and he also made another comment that if you don't have a quarterback, you're a dead man. So
there's that. He's happy where he is. He likes that key, right?
Oh, Tuberville was one of the best guys at getting out of Dodge before they showed up. That was his strong suit. That was Tuberville's strong suit, was getting out of Dodge before the proverbial fire team showed up to get rid of him. That's why he left Auburn unexpectedly and shows up at Cincinnati, and then he miraculously retires from Cincinnati because I believe he followed Brian Kelly. So, I mean, it's all about what your perspective is realistically, but I think Penn State's going to get their feelings hurt. I really do believe that. And I think this is just a chain of events that I think has led up to it with James Franklin. They got really mad about the videos surfacing of him yelling at students, asking them, jawing back at students the last, 24 months. Then you have the incident at the press conference in the summertime where he gets up and walks out about 2 kids that got arrested on the team that he let go through spring ball, which I thought was a fair question from the reporter. Because Penn State had one of the SIDs go out there and make a statement from the athletic department, and we have no further comment. Well, the first question is James, why'd you let him practice if you knew? He gets up and walks out, and then he comes back, and then they don't ask him about it. The problem you have with that is that the university was embarrassed, and then he goes and takes the pot shots at Notre Dame, which I know the Notre Dame people were not happy about, the administration, when Franklin sat up there and said, I think everybody needs to play a conference championship game. Well, here's the thing, James. Life ain't fair. That's just what it is. When you went to the playoffs, the money that you made from your university gets whacked up with 18 teams. Notre Dame got a $34 million check to keep for themselves. Who's the smart people here?
Yeah. There's a lot of resentment towards Notre Dame being independent.
Well, also,
but if you ask me, like anybody should want to play Notre Dame. The hatred's already built in. Like you love or hate them. So if you're going against them, you're gonna hate them, right? Even if you like them, because if it's your team. And so, like the worst that can happen by scheduling Notre Dame is you get a great out of conference team to play against.
Right.
And it made A&M, it paid off for them, and it paid off for Miami. And it's, Miami might hurt themselves, because that they're imploding towards the end of the season again. But like at the one point they were number 1 and number 3 because of their out of conference being Notre Dame.
Well, yeah, and not only that, the amount of revenue that it generates, because Notre Dame fans travel like Ohio State fans. There's certain fan bases that you could be playing in Anchorage at Anchorage U, and there'd be tons of Notre Dame people there. That's just what it is. Yeah. At the end of the day, I think sometimes people forget that college sports is a business, whether you like it or love it. These universities have to make money in order to keep the doors open.
Yeah.
And furthermore, on the Franklin stuff is he goes up there and takes shots at Notre Dame not playing in a conference championship game. Well, what does it matter? Because all the conference champions lost. Ohio State didn't play for a conference championship, and they won the national championship. So what? Right. That argument to me holds zero weight. So what? You played an extra game. But the first time either the Big Ten or SEC doesn't get a conference champion loser that's deserving to get in, that's where the conference championship games will go bye-bye. And I don't think Greg Sankey is pulling punches with Tony Petitti on this, saying we're not subscribing to this auto bid business. We're not doing it because it limits my conference. And at the end of the day, Greg Sankey works for the SEC schools. That's who keeps him employed. I don't think people realize that, because it's not his fault to where at Minnesota, do you think the fans at Minnesota realistically think that they're ever going to make the playoff? No. I can answer that equivocally. No. Nebraska, they're probably pushing. You can go up and down the Big Ten. Do you think Rutgers thinks they can make the playoff? No. They don't put a playoff roster together. Northwestern's the same way. That's my only thing.
I think the Big Ten has been political for a very long time.
Oh, without a doubt. In Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State are your 3 competitors in that conference. Period. I just don't think
I wouldn't even put Penn State in there, just because I think that the darlings of the league, and I think everyone accepts it in there, that it's going to be Michigan and Ohio State, and they make it easily recognizable by the refereeing of these games that they play in. Like, even when another team might have a good season, like if a Michigan State, because it's such a good rivalry of Michigan, if they're playing them tough, at some point the refs are going to make a crap call, and it's going to go Michigan's favor. And I see that always happening with Ohio State too. I've never seen Ohio State with a gun to their head because the refs haven't been calling the majority of their calls in their favor. I've never seen them up against it.
Right.
And I think that's the politics of that Big Ten.
And I
they
also
know where the refs know where their bread is buttered, and this is the teams that everyone watches. And of course, when they play each other, it's money through the roof. So that's just my opinion. That's why I don't want really Notre Dame. I would rather Notre Dame go to the SEC because I think they are going to have to at some point join a conference. If these conferences, unless it's either one way or the other, it's either everyone gets independent and goes towards a pay-per-view kind of thing for your school, or the conferences will stay around. But I'd rather Notre Dame go to the SEC and take their chances there because, first of all, I love competition, and I think the SEC has more sickos that like to play in that conference. Like they get kids from all over that because that's the SEC. They want to play. They want to play there. So that's what I'd like to see because Notre Dame would have great competition, and that's what I'm all about with Notre Dame. I just like the tougher the schedule for me, the better I like it.
I also think that there is an alliance between the SEC and Notre Dame. People disagree with me on that, but I think you're seeing it because the SEC keeps scheduling them, and the Big Ten.
Well, they know it's a payday. I mean, Auburn's no dummy. They know what's going to happen with those games.
Oh yeah, and also not that I'm taking your position on the refereeing. I think the refereeing, for all intensive purposes, when it comes to Ohio State, Michigan, I think it's because it's in big games that a lot of people watch. I think the officiating between the SEC, Big Ten, ACC, and Big 12, all the officiating's bad because anytime you get good officials, the NFL takes them.
Well, I think, you're the only time that the Big Ten is going to call it straight is when Michigan plays Ohio State. Then it's not going to be really obvious calls that are, everyone just goes, oh boy,
But I think
that's the only time.
I think that Ryan Day has sway with the officials in the Big Ten. I think Kirby Smart has sway with the officials in the SEC, and I think Saban did for years.
And I think Pete Carroll did for years at the Pac-12.
Right, and I think it's more coach dependent than it is school dependent, if that makes sense.
It does.
And I think that we had a rough time last year when we seen multiple schools, student sections throw stuff on the field for bad calls.
Yeah, that's right. That was the people standing up.
And I think that one other thing that I think is,
and that first one was a definite, like the first time we saw that, it was America, I think, was understanding of those people doing that.
Well,
I think wasn't that Georgia?
Yeah, it was Georgia, Texas, and they called offensive PI, and the kid didn't shove off.
Mm-hmm.
And he goes and breaks off a big run, and then, whatever they did is they picked up the flag.
Right. Oh, they just got themselves deeper and deeper.
Because I think they threw a PI or it was something, but they threw a flag, and then in between them throwing stuff on the field in the review, by them picking up the flag, Texas went crazy and started throwing stuff on the field. And it happened at Ohio State too.
Yeah.
And after that had happened, I kind of had said, can we not throw stuff on the field this week? But I
like it. You know what? I like it if it's called for, like, if the refs are just that blatantly bad, then I like it.
my thing is that there needs to be accountability throughout the officiating crews. That's what I'm asking for. I'm not asking that we should tar and feather these guys in public square. Just
Right. Like that
sometimes,
one guy that made the bad call against Auburn when that was clearly a
right?
touchdown crossing the goal line. They shouldn't fire the guy and ban him for life. I mean, come on. You can suspend him for a few games, maybe the rest of the year at the most. But I mean, he'll have learned his lesson, right?
I think Ken Williams will be back officiating next season. They're just not going to announce it, and he'll just appear.
Yeah, reinstate him.
But it's the same thing. It's the same thing in the NFL. You'll have some games. Richie Incognito said this on Julian Edelman's podcast, and I believe this is true. Incognito said they were playing a game somewhere. I think it was Oakland was playing, I think Miami, or they were playing somewhere in the NFL. They hadn't thrown a flag all game. Hardly. They hadn't thrown a flag all game.
Or else they were calling a good game, in other words.
Basically, they kept the flags in the pockets for the majority of the contest. And then he said, like, the last 10 minutes, it starts getting flag crazy.
I hate that.
And I agree with him. That's like the Auburn-Georgia game. The 2-minute warning was at like 9 o'clock. They didn't go to halftime until almost 9:40. And I think that's a problem.
Well, the thing is, they start doing makeup calls, and then makeup calls lead to more makeup calls, and then all of a sudden you're calling things that aren't what no one's seen.
And here's the other thing. I also don't think it does them well as the broadcast networks, to where you'll have a call. They'll call holding and they won't show it, which also gets fan speculation.
I've seen that. Yeah, I've seen that.
But I think the ACC put the other conferences on blast whenever they said, well, we'll take you into the replay booth, because the ACC was getting
I love that. I love that change. And I don't know why it's only the ACC, but that is really, really good to listen in, because then you're hearing it as it's being evaluated, That's a great thing. That should be mandatory in every at least every national game.
Well, I just feel like that they are getting to the point to where you're having the gambling stuff, and I hate to say this. I think I have an uncle about your age, Joe, and he told me when they legalized the sports gambling, he said this is going to be a problem.
You're a smart uncle.
And I said, why do you think...
I don't like the way all these advertisements are... ESPN has betting shows now. I mean, this is ridiculous with sports betting. Like, all of a sudden it's embraced and it's all over the place. Like, they're advertising like crazy.
I want
to make them... It's almost like the gun lobby,
I almost want to say it was... I'm trying to think here. I'm trying to think of the announcer. It was somebody doing like a Friday night Big 12 game. I think it was Chris Peter. What was that guy's name that was a running back at SMU? Not Eric Dickerson, but his sidekick.
Oh,
Played with Ron Meyer. Craig James.
Yeah, he went to New England, yeah.
Before Craig James got kicked off of air, he would make gambling references, and ESPN did not like it. They took him off air for like a week or something because of it. There was a critical, I don't know what it was, but they were up in the booth and it was a blowout. It was like Texas playing Missouri or Baylor or something like that. And he referenced Baylor went down and scored a touchdown to make it like 14-48 or something like that. And everybody and their brother bet Texas to cover the line. Well, Baylor covers it. And Craig James, all he said was, I bet there's going to be some people in the desert not real thrilled with that touchdown. That's all he said, and they took him off air. This was probably 15 years ago, but
right.
But I'm just saying
getting back to showing, those refs in the background that are, when the call is contested and they're going to the replay booth. I think that should be like everywhere, because they got it wrong one time, and I've seen it probably about 6 times because I tape so many games. I've seen them talk about it like 6 different times, and the only time I saw them get it wrong was once. So I mean that's a pretty good ratio, I think, that they get it right.
Well,
but hearing them discuss it is what's really fascinating, and you can see from all the angles they're seeing, and they're thinking aloud. Like I like it.
You still there, Joe?
Yeah.
I think that one of the issues you have here is you can't get people to officiate games. And I don't disagree with that they need to be held accountable. But I also don't think that I think that also it was disingenuous when they were talking about the Terry Rozier stuff and ESPN takes off their Bet ESPN advertisements off the screen because of how it looks PR wise. But here's the other thing is that FanDuel, DraftKings, they're all giving these leagues money. They all have booths. Like when I went to Talladega, Zen Sportsbook, which is a new sports book in the South that's trying to get regulated, in which a lot of the southern states have been kind of against the legalization of gambling. And I think that, for young people, this is a big problem.
Absolutely.
And
it's going to be like fentanyl. It's going to be another fentanyl.
And I think that some of these college kids are gambling. They're not 21. They're taking out credit cards and betting with money they don't have, and eventually they have to pay that money back.
Right.
And I mean, you go look at Iowa State. They had staffers betting on Iowa State basketball, whether it was football staffers or basketball staffers, but they were betting on the university. And that's why not a lot of people know this, because I've ran across it because I do gamble, but I don't have a gambling problem is the thing. And now the sports books, let's say, not to use somebody current, but let's say back in the day, Julius Jones that played for Notre Dame, right?
Yeah.
Let's say if Julius Jones wasn't going to play in a game and all the Sharks start loading up on the backup running back, but it hasn't been announced, the sports books can void your bet.
Yeah.
Now, tell me in the realm of possibility where that is fair, number one. And number two, just because you have information the book doesn't have, in which they pay people for this type of information, it's hilarious to me that they will allow you to, they are allowed to void your bet. That's my thing. And I think the government gets so much money out of these casinos that they're not going to rock the boat with them.
Yeah, it's a problem.
And I just feel like that the sports books can deem anything syndicate action, which has happened to me before. When you bet certain teams to win, because there was an offshore book that I used to use before gambling was legal in Indiana, and I won a big upset. And they said, the bet is void, here's your money back. The bet is void, here's your money back. And we're deeming this syndicate action, is what they called it. So
yeah, I don't know. I don't do the gambling, so I don't really have an interest in this. To me, I don't really care about it. I know it's a problem, and I hope they can figure it out. That's about it. That's all I have to say on it.
Well, I know that I know where you stand on it. You stated that. But until it affects your team, that's when people are going to start caring about it. That's just
it's. I think it's been happening since Pete Rose.
I think they've always been betting, and it's just been a big secret because, and I also think some coaches know what the point spreads are too. I don't disagree with that because there's a certain radio.
I don't think that the betting gamut is including head coaches deciding what they're going to do because of that. I don't buy that.
You don't think so?
No. Unless it's some really unscrupulous, like Jimbo Fisher, I would probably believe it, But for the most part, I'm not really.
It may not be in college football, but the head baseball coach at Alabama got caught gambling.
Yeah.
Everybody.
You're always going to have, the very small segments, getting popped, or maybe a lot more are doing it, and only some, like with steroids, for example. Like A-Rod and McGuire and Canseco. Well, guess what? Big Papi, I remember him when he was playing at Minnesota, and he was just a long, lanky guy. And all of a sudden, the mid-'80s come along, or I should say the mid-'90s, and all of a sudden, Big Papi turned into Huge Papi. Like he was just a skinny, lanky guy. And McGuire was actually the same thing.
Oh, yeah.
And then all of a sudden, steroids happen, and these guys just buffed out,
Well, I look at and we'll get off the gambling subject, but this is the last thing I have about it. You mean to tell me that the Shohei Ohtani stuff, as soon as the playoffs roll around, just gets swept under the rug?
Oh, is that with his interpreter?
Yes, with the interpreter. You mean to tell me,
right.
and then the guy that was the bookie handling the money was doing all these podcasts, and he's since stopped doing podcasts? Why is that?
Yeah.
I just think that it's unbelievable on how some people have their head buried in the sand on the Ohtani thing. But that's just
me. Well, Ohtani is like the biggest name in the game, so baseball is not going to try and scrutinize themselves because of such a major star being involved. They're going to try and put that under the front mat and hope it goes away.
Right. So there's that.
But
we're over an hour. Yeah. Anything else before we get out of here, Joe?
No, North Carolina opened it up, so they're looks like they're going to walk away. They were down most of the first half to Kansas, and then all of a sudden now they're up by like 14 or something.
Yeah, it smells like a blowout, but I guess with that we'll be back Monday. Any last words, Joe, before we shut it down?
No, I'm just gonna enjoy this USC game now.
Gotcha. So, all right, Joe, you take care. We'll talk to you later.
Very good, Duke. Good talk. Bye-bye.
Bye. All right, that was Joe. So there's that. Thoughts on Missouri and A&M. I think A&M wins. We'll get ready to go Cards. I'm assuming you must be a Louisville fan, but I guess I could leave it open for a little bit longer. The phone lines are open. Leave it open for about 5 minutes here. Phone lines open, 260-255-4069. Sorry, you folks on TikTok, you can't hear the people that phone in, but there's that. I think it's going to be an interesting endeavor going into the weekend. Just my opinion, but yeah, outside of that, I think we can go ahead and end it for this evening. We'll be back tomorrow, 7:30 for the LSU Alabama game and see what we have there. But until next time, we'll talk to you guys later. Have a good evening. Have a good Friday night, everybody. Also, do us the biggest favor. Don't drink and drive. Call an Uber. Please call an Uber. So we will talk to you later.